mode.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the second installment of SEEA's webinar series on inclusive financing programs. My name is Wesley Holmes. I'm the Director of Strategy and Development for the Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance, and we are pleased to be offering, in partnership with Clean Energy Works, this update on inclusive financing programs in the South. You are all in good company today. We're very happy to report we've got over 100 different registrants from across the country with us today, representing 12 different states, including state energy offices from 6 different states, and utilities and their representative associations from 7 different states, along with dozens of nonprofits, community advocates, and service providers from around the region. This is, without a doubt, one of our most popular webinar series to date, and we're very happy to have you all joining us. Now, just as a refresher for those who've been with us before and to fill in those who are just joining us for the first time, the Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance is a regional energy efficiency organization focusing on 11 states across the Southeast, ranging from Virginia in the north down to Florida, and then westward to Arkansas and Louisiana. Our mission is to ensure that people in the Southeast have the knowledge, resources, and opportunities they need to optimize energy use. Within that vein, we have a specific focus around energy efficiency finance. Our goal of that work is to expand the availability and accessibility of capital to make energy efficiency investments. And to that end, we've worked with a variety of stakeholders across the region, including state energy offices, utilities, private lenders, banks and credit unions, CDFIs, along with a variety of other private sector actors to try to expand the broad suite of financing solutions that are out there to serve every kind of customer type. Along with that, we're actively trying to work to expand on-bill financing programs because we feel this is one of the strongest paths forward to support inclusive financing and great access to everyone. And if you wonder why we want to pursue on-bill specifically, this is a map of the electric cooperatives serving the United States. If you're not aware, there's actually 864 electric distribution cooperatives across the country. 230 of those, more than 230 of those, are actually active in the Southeast. Now, these cooperatives actually serve some of the most chronically pervasively poor communities across the region, and we are committed to bringing new solutions and new access to those blighted areas of deep red across our region. And that's why we feel that cooperatives are ideally placed. They have trusted-based relationships with their communities, they're member-focused, and they have demonstrated tremendous capacity to bring great innovation to this space. And that's why we're thrilled to be joined today by program operators who are actually representing programs being provided by 8 different utilities across 3 states. And they're going to be able to share with us how these programs have had impacts in their communities and how they were able to actually set those up and structure them. Leading things off, we're going to be joined by Mr. Chris Woolery, who's the program manager from MACED. He leads the HouseSmart Kentucky program. We'll be followed up by Marshall Cherry, who is the COO of Roanoke Electric, heading up the Upgrade to Save program in North Carolina. Followed by Tammy Agard, who is the president of E-Utility, helping to manage the HELP program, or HELP Pays program, I should say, across Arkansas. So we will be leading off with our friends in Kentucky. And with that, I'm going to turn controls over to Chris Woolery. Let him introduce himself.
Hey y'all, I'm Chris Woolery and I'm the program coordinator for HouseSmart Kentucky, and I work at MACED, which is the Mountain Association for Community Economic Development. We're in Central Kentucky. And Marshall, I don't think I have control of the slide deck, but I'll go ahead and start with an introduction to MACED. Again, we're the Mountain Association for Community Economic Development, and we're an organization that's known as a CDFI, which is a Community Development Financial Institution. Thanks, Wesley. So a CDFI is a private financial institution that's dedicated to delivering affordable financing for folks that have traditionally difficult times accessing more mainstream financing products. We're community oriented. We want to help low income, low wealth, and other disadvantaged people communities join the economic mainstream. And different CDFIs have different missions. MESA's particular mission is to partner with local folks in Appalachian, Kentucky to support community economic development. We do that through non-traditional business lending, lots of entrepreneurial support, policy work, and even investment programs like HouseSmart Kentucky. We're doing this because we want to build on the strengths of Kentucky and Central Appalachia and serve as a catalyst for a just transition to a new economy that serves more people in this region, especially as demand for coal declines. So we strive to create economic alternatives in clean energy and other key sectors like local foods and healthcare. We strive to make Appalachian communities a better place to live. So we are working in partnership with 6 rural electric co-ops across eastern Kentucky, all of which serve different counties that are considered Appalachian counties as defined by the Appalachian Regional Commission. You can see the 6 co-ops that we work with now, and to our knowledge, HouseSmart Kentucky is the first on-bill program that has ever been offered by each of these co-op partners. We're blessed to be able to work with them in this way. So you'll see a little graphic here on your screen that talks about how the system works, but we're not going to go into detail about that, and we'll refer you back to the first webinar in this series if anyone wasn't able to attend. You can get the basics of how PAYS works, Pay As You Save, how that works by accessing that first webinar. I want to briefly discuss the timeline for HouseSmart Kentucky. And at first I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of the folks that came before us, and that was Midwest Energy in Kansas. So we even took the name HouseSmart from them, and we put Kentucky on the end of it, and we filed for a tariff to work with 4 rural electric co-ops back in 2009, which was approved in 2010 after 18 months of deliberations and questions and due diligence on the part of the Public Service Commission. What's important in this slide is not all the dates, but the fact that we were able to get each of our tariffs approved faster each time we had to file one. And every time we filed our next tariff, the approval process cut down by about 50% in terms of timeline. And so the last tariff we applied for was approved in 3 months. So let's talk about our rate classes. Most of our co-op partners serve residential and small commercial rate classes, and only one of them does not serve small commercial. We haven't done a ton of jobs in that rate class, but we do have the opportunity and capability of doing so. And we can even serve renters as long as they have permission from the property owner. And it's my experience that property owners really enjoy upgrading their homes in this way and allowing their tenants to help pay for them happily. Our typical improvements are probably the same as other energy efficiency programs. We do a lot of duct sealing, air sealing, insulation. Often we upgrade HVAC systems, especially when they're starting with an electric resistance heat system like baseboard heat electric furnaces, or cable ceiling heat. We do programmable thermostats as well. Most of these are high return investments that pay for themselves over time, and that's how we're able to do this. And let's talk about our stats a little bit. Over about 5 years, we've been able to complete almost 550 assessments, give out close to 400 offers, most of which, nearly 80%, were accepted. And we're happy to report that we've been able to work with low and moderate income households. In fact, the majority of our jobs are in those households. And almost a quarter of them are in manufactured housing. If you're wondering why we can't close all of our offers, there's lots of different reasons that come into play. Many times, folks choose to do the work on their own. A lot of the work, air sealing, insulation, duct sealing, is fairly low cost relatively. A lot of people just paid out of pocket and they were happy to access our expertise. Some folks wanted different kinds of heating other than electric, and others yet were referred to community action programs in which they were able to get some of this work done with no contract. And the next slide shows a little bit more stats, like our average job cost to date, average projected annual electric savings, and I think the key here is the net monthly cash flow. We're able to put money back in the pockets for each of our members, and we're required to do so. And we're averaging about $11 of net monthly cash flow for each participant. And so they are able to put money in their pocket from day one once they participate in the program. And it's a very low risk proposition. You'll see here that our cost recovery is at almost 100%, and we've had 0 disconnections for non-payment after our pilot program. We did have to learn a few lessons in the pilot program. I want to talk about some of our key lessons that we learned. We've been at this now for 5 years or so, and we've really come to understand that relationships are key. Communication and trust are required, and if you have those things, you can really be successful. We've also come to understand that almost anybody can be a partner, and as long as they understand the need that Wesley outlined in the introduction, they can become a partner or an advocate. And so think outside the box if you're looking for partners and trying to create a similar program of your own. And when you do that, it's even better if you can identify or develop one or more champions for your program in each partner organization. And those folks are able to speak on your behalf and advocate when you're not there and help to get these things done. And, you know, I had to figure out the hard way to learn from others. I wasn't aware in many cases of the other programs across the country that were doing this work, and I created a few of my own wheels from scratch. It's much better to reach out and find others doing this work and identify best practices that have already been established. And then we've learned that in order to get uptake from our cooperative utility partners, we really need to build a case for the business. It's a business proposition for them. These investments generate benefits for the utilities. It's not just something that they're doing because it's a good thing and to help their members, which is part of their calculation. But if they're going to get benefits and they're generating and transmitting electricity supplier can get benefits as well. It really is a win-win proposition. We've learned that our utility partners have helped us to quantify the value that they're getting. And then finally, don't make assumptions. Try to confirm everything. And I can give you a brief example. Our cooperative partners, they own a G&T, a generating and transmission co-op, in common with 16, along with others. There are 16 co-ops that own East Kentucky Power Co-op. And so they have efficiency incentives, and we developed a growth plan for our program that factored in those incentive payments to the distribution co-ops. What we didn't know was that their budget allocation really underestimated the demand for efficiency in the region. And so they didn't have enough money in the budget. So now we're working to engage them again on buying more efficiency resources at costs that are less than buying supply from their wholesale market. And with that, I want to make you all aware of how you can reach out to me. I'm happy to help anyone with any question, and my contact information is right there on the screen. And thanks so much for listening and for having me on.
Thank you, Chris. And I know some of you folks probably have specific questions for Chris now, but I just want to say that we're going to get to our Q&A at the end, so please hold your questions for everybody. But as they come to you, you are welcome to go ahead and drop your questions into the questions box on the right side of your screen. So with that, we're going to now move on to Upgrade to Save in North Carolina. I'm going to turn over controls to Mr. Marshall Cherry to take you through his programs. Marshall, have you got control?
Let's check. Yes, I do.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marshall Cherry, Chief Operating Officer with Roanoke Electric Cooperative. I've been employed with Roanoke for almost 24 years now. And of course, we're very excited about this Upgrade to Save program, as we have deemed it or labeled it, using basically a capital source to recoup our investment in homes through a pay-as-you-save model that we will cover here shortly. Roanoke does fit the profile of the some of the situations that we do encounter are probably a little more egregious than the typical cooperative. You did see in the map a little earlier, of course, we're in the northeastern corridor of North Carolina, and we're located in the 1st Congressional District, which is one of the most economically depressed areas in the country, or congressional districts in the country. And some of the counties that we do serve reflect that. And so, of course, the challenge for us, obviously, is to live up to the mission, which typically is going to have the words safe, reliable, and affordable electricity in the mission statement of a typical electric cooperative. And so we always work toward driving a perception of living up to that, and at the same time wanting to establish a model that is sustainable for our organization. As you can see on this slide in your top left, of course, Roanoke Electric, we have the situation here where many of our member owners are exceeding the average electric cooperative member owner nationwide in terms of usage. We have roughly about half of our member owners who average monthly bills over $200. And this number, as you can see, as it compares to the rest of the nation, the ratio is 48% for us, roughly 30% for the rest of the nation when we look at the benchmarking data. And of course, with that, we realize we do not have a rate problem. Of course, our rates are very much in line with the typical electric cooperative, particularly for our size and the density base that we have at Roanoke. But we do also acknowledge that there is significant consumption. And so our objective here is to work toward encouraging, educating our member owners to be, I guess, better stewards of their energy usage in their homes. And it does have an impact on us. As you can see at the bottom of this slide, we do a lot of surveys at Roanoke, whereas we check in with our member owners to see how we're performing. And as you look at the threshold of member owners who, in this case, roughly about 53% of the respondents were above $201 or more, our numbers are skewed with our overall level of satisfaction. As you can see in the others, we're outperforming the benchmark or very close to the benchmark. But so this definitely presents a challenge to us to work toward making sure that we're able to address some of the issues that we face with some of our member owners. Energy efficiency financing is not anything that's new to us at Roanoke. As I mentioned to you, I've been here well over 20 years, and I can remember years ago, we've done several different versions, whether it's through using the co-op's money or partnering with a financial institution, whereas we've done some type of own bill loan program. And the barriers that we face in trying to administer such a program is creditworthiness of the member owners. Of course, member owners not necessarily wanting to take on additional debt. And we had, of course, barriers with landowners not wanting to absorb that cost, and of course the renter not, I guess, having any skin in the game. And so we've offered a program whereas we wanted to make sure that we can lead more people to a yes response when we go out and do a performance measure at the member owner's home, so that we can move forward and hopefully identify some savings opportunities for member owners. As Chris mentioned earlier, of course, we're also, this is a wheel that you just saw in Chris' slide, very similar. We do have a capital provider. I'll talk about them later. The utility obviously is Roanoke. We have a program operator, which is a nonprofit organization here in Northeastern North Carolina, who manages our contractors and also handles the overall customer relations management for our member owners. And ultimately that leads through, the money flows. The money flow, as you can see, leads through to the metered site, whereas the member owner, who is the occupant at the time, will actually be responsible for repaying this investment back to the utility. And these are the entities who serve those roles for us at Roanoke. Of course, I'll talk some about the ECLIP. The Roanoke Center is the name of the program operator that I mentioned just now. So some of our, of course, numbers or the scorecard that we've been able to generate to date, and we've been managing our program now. I think the concept started early 2014 for us, and we spent a little over a year onboarding the program, getting contractors trained, training our staff, also writing the business plan to apply for funding with the USDA Energy Efficiency Conservation and Loan Program. And so with our program, and this is really almost 18 months worth of activity, because our first measure was actually performed in July of 2015, and we're right at about 205 projects that we have completed through the end of December 2016, and the average cost of our upgrades is about $7,200. Roanoke does invest on average $325 per project, and the reason for that is in North Carolina we have a renewable energy portfolio standards law, whereas we're accumulating RECs from renewable projects, but we can also count any investments in energy efficiency projects that equates to a megawatt hour. These credits that we're accumulating, and we can report them to the state. And so there's a value to Roanoke, and of course this energy efficiency concept is one that works very well for the cooperative business model. So it's a good fit for us to continue, this type of investment in these programs. Our average monthly savings that we've deemed to date at our sites is roughly about $80, just over $80 per month. And what we're doing is we, of course, cannot serve every project. And with that, where we're going with that is we only invest in projects where we can truthfully deem enough savings that will more than absorb a tariff payment that we would need to recoup and reinvest back in the cooperative. You heard Chris talk about the tariff. We also filed a tariff as well, which is the amount of the loan rate repayment that we need. And typically we will actually have that listed or linked to that location for about a 10-year period. And of course, with that tariff payment, we will reduce the amount of the investment that Roanoke actually afforded to that home. And so we make sure that there's enough savings to ensure that member owners will see or experience some type of benefit while they are paying the tariff. And so in this case, we typically never want to go over 75%. We want to make sure that the tariff amount is never more than 75% of the deemed savings that we calculate, given about 25% of each investment or tariff payment going back, or 25% of each savings amount monthly going back into the members' pockets, which equates to about $20 per month. So we're financing our investments from the Energy Efficiency Conservation and Loan Program, and I mentioned that to you. And this is a program that is still fairly new. We were one of the first 2 cooperatives in the nation to apply and successfully apply for funding from the USDA Rural Utility Service Energy Efficiency Conservation Loan Program. This is a program, I believe, that was made available as a result of some language in the Farm Bill that was passed several years ago. And so with that, there's $5 billion available annually at Treasury rates to cooperatives to reinvest. And again, back into energy efficiency programs such as our program. What we were able to do is we successfully applied, and we were awarded $6 million in money to invest into our member owners' homes. It is a line of credit, so we only draw down as needed. Typically after we will do a project or several projects over time, we will do a draw from that line of credit. And that money, of course, flows again back to the average $7,000 in upgrades per participant who's participating in our program. And I mentioned in the wheel that you saw earlier, we're able to recoup it through a flow, whereas the member owner is paying a tariff to offset the amount of the draw that we're pulling from the government. So our source of capital is the ECLIP, and the application process is one that, of course, we were able to get approved within about a 90-day period of time. And of course, the $6 million has been awarded to us on a reimbursable basis. As I mentioned, we only owe what is used, and it is an interest-only loan in the first year. Basically, the same process as other rural utility service loans. Of course, that's typically many cooperatives nationwide are tapping into the rural utility service to provide financing for system improvements, and this is the capital source that we have identified for us that will work for us in this program. And as a result of this 18-month period of time, since mid-2015, of course, we do have better buildings across our system. We're investing in jobs and workforce development. Our contractors, of course, we have a few who are doing very well in the program, have been very responsive to our member owners. One benefit, as I mentioned in the very beginning of my spiel, that we wanted to establish a model that is still sustainable for us as a utility, and we've identified that we're able to support of course, even lost revenue in many cases, lost revenue by the savings, through the savings that we're able to accumulate through reductions in wholesale demand costs. Most of the projects, again, that we have done to date are those that are kind of on the high end of consumption, as you saw on our chart earlier. And so with that, that gives us an opportunity, because many of them contribute to our peaks that we're experiencing with our generation and transmission cooperative. And so the more that we can reduce our peak demand and of course the more expensive energy that we're paying for in some of our peaking costs, that of course provides benefit to all of our member owners. And so in addition to that, we are working toward overall satisfaction for our member owners, and we're seeing it, our member owners as a whole, because we're communicating this across our system, and our member owners are rewarding us for this effort, which is one of our high impact initiatives that we're doing here at Roanoke. $1.5 million to date has been invested in our community as a result of this program. So for us, of course, we particularly being one of the first cooperatives, particularly on using the USDA ECLIP funding, we're making ourselves available to assist others who are interested in applying for funds with the USDA ECLIP program. One good thing about us in this situation, and I like the fact that Chris did go before me, because they had a very good model of the pay-as-you-save model, which is the manner in which the funds are recouped. And so we were able to gain some very good business intelligence from them on the front end as we were onboarding our program. So as we're doing the same here, our CEO, Curtis Wynn, our president and CEO, of course, has an open letter that we presented last year as one of the presenters at Tech Advantage with NRECA. And so you can basically review that letter, and there's some very good instruction on ways to get started with this program. In addition to that, this is another tool that we provided, which is called the Decision Tool for Utility Managers that we've provided. And please, at your leisure, go to the website or the URL that you see at the bottom, because we have a lot of good information there that kind of speaks to some specific questions that a cooperative may have. Some of the questions may center around bandwidth. do I have the capacity to be able to administer such a program? And so you'll learn in all of that that there are resources that are available that can really add on to your existing team and provide the support to mobilize the program. And so that's kind of the model that we've established, and we have some very good partners around the table helping us manage this program. And so we're, again, very excited about this, and we're available. Of course, if you have questions at any time, please check in with us, and we're more than happy to provide information. And I do thank you all for this time.
Thank you very much, Marshall. I appreciate that. And now we're going to move into Arkansas. I'm going to turn things over to Tammy Agard. Tammy, have you got control?
I do not.
Try again.
There we go. I do now. Well, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Tammy Agard, and I'm one of two co-founders of a 2-year-old B Corporation called Utility, and our home base is in Little Rock, Arkansas. Thank you, first of all, to SEEA for organizing this series and this call. And before I go on, I want to give a quick shout out to the two gentlemen who spoke before me. I've had the pleasure of working with Chris a little bit, and Marshall as well, over the last several months. And I just want to acknowledge to everyone listening how inspiring their leadership has been for myself and my business partner. So just real quickly, I want to talk a little bit about Utility and what we do and sort of our timeline. We got our start, the co-founders, myself and business partner Johnny Lacaz, we got our start operating the Home Energy Affordability Loan Program called HEAL in Arkansas. We incubated that program for the Clinton Foundation in 2009. In 2014, we founded Utility, which is Arkansas's first B Corporation. In 2015, Utility developed what we call the Home Energy Lending Program, which was very well received. As a matter of fact, 4 rural electric cooperatives in Arkansas share the same program. And in 2016, we began operating pays for one of the first cooperatives in Arkansas who now offer inclusive financing. We follow the pay system there. In 2017, what's in store for us? We're going to be launching another Help Pays program for a second Arkansas rural electric cooperative that will be coming on board here in a couple months. And as well, we're actually going to be helping Roanoke Electric on their Upgrade to Save program, where we'll be providing some program operator support services alongside the Roanoke Center to support their work in North Carolina. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about right off the bat, and I like to bring this up pretty much in all the webinars or any talking that I do, I want to point out that 93% of persistent poverty counties in the U.S. overlap with rural electric cooperatives. Those territories are where people who are living in persistent poverty live. And that's pretty compelling. But even though you may be inclined to think that Utility wants to focus our model on rural electric cooperatives because co-op members are most in need, which is undeniable with the statistic, that's not actually our driving reason. Remember, our B Corporation wants societal and environmental benefit for all, not just for low income. And so the reason that Utility actually likes to work in the rural electric co-op sector is because really of the statement on the bottom of this slide, which says if we can figure out how to make energy efficiency financing work for rural electric cooperatives and their member owners, many of whom live in persistent poverty, then we have figured out how energy efficiency financing can work for everyone anywhere in the country. And I've got to say, you know, the two gentlemen who spoke before me, Obviously, Marshall and Chris very well entrenched in the rural electric cooperative sector for many, many years. A lot of the folks I talk to on a daily basis are representing rural electric cooperatives across the country. And I want to give a quick shout out to rural electric cooperatives who, in my view, are leading the way once again with energy efficiency, particularly following the on-bill finance model. And it's just wonderful to see. And so I think rural electric cooperatives really should get some big kudos for that. So let's start where we started, which is with the loan program. In 2014, we worked in conjunction with a very forward-thinking cooperative called Washita Electric Cooperative, located in the southwestern edge of the Arkansas Delta region. The average household median income for the area is approximately $29,000, and that's compared to $52,000 nationally and $42,000 for the state. 8,500 meters throughout Washita's territory are primarily for single-family homes, and these homes are typically 50 to 100 years old. So regardless now of if we operate our loan or our tariff-based model across the state, the operational components of HELP as the loan program or HELP Pays as the opt-in tariff program are thanks in no small part to us being fortunate enough to have this particular co-op, Washita Electric Co-op, as our pioneer. What we've learned by working with Washita Electric Cooperative is that our service delivery really can work anywhere. So let's talk about what worked first in the loan program. What worked first? The loan program, the loan model, had its really first success by the Arkansas Energy Office letting us have a loan loss reserve out there. And what that did was it mitigated the perception of default risk that an awful lot of decision makers at the utility level have. And I want to underline the word perception. To date, we have had 0 defaults. I saw on both Marshall's slide deck as well as Chris's, they've had the same default risk, which is essentially not. So this is a perception nonetheless that the Arkansas Energy Office was willing to help us with. Big kudos to them for that. As a result of that loss reserve being out there, that paved the way for 4 additional Arkansas co-ops to say yes, to be exact. What also worked was homeowners were allowed to get weatherization upgrades using the loan model, and those upgrades included attic insulation, air sealing, and duct sealing. Washita averaged $3,100 in loans for those measures. Conversion rates we enjoyed were right around 70 to 80% when our bill neutral offerings were made, which is what we strive for in the loan program. So what I want to look at now is what didn't work. And here's what didn't work. Single-family renters were left out. Multi-family renters were left out. Mobile homes, of which there's a good portion of mobile homes in Arkansas, those were left out. HVAC financing was actually not an option. And even with the loss reserve that the Arkansas Energy Office provided, the perceived risk was too high for the boards of directors on Washita Electric Cooperative to say yes to being comfortable financing it. So with the board not being comfortable enough to finance HVAC on the loan, that meant Washita was walking away from what we've now proven is about 2 kW of peak demand savings, which, by the way, equals about $300 a year in avoided cost savings that they were leaving on the table per participant. And that money adds up quite a bit when you start really penetrating the market. So I put together a side-by-side slide that shows the home energy lending program HELP next to the HELP Pays program in an effort to sort of let you all see a side-by-side comparison. About the time we were really starting to look for a more equitable and more impactful financing mechanism, we came to compare our loan-based model to the pay-as-you-save system. So I want to start focusing on the green arrows. These are the ones that I really wanted to highlight. The first arrow is pretty self-explanatory. Renters, both single and multifamily, as I said, are now eligible. If you look at those green arrows under the PAYS system, the column on the right. The second arrow below shows that bill neutral is not enough. In fact, the pay system requires that no more than 80% of the estimated savings can be used for the utility to recover its investment costs. And what that means, everyone, is that 20% of the savings stays in the participant's pocket. So who wouldn't take that offer? So another key difference is referenced in the third arrow, where I highlight that the participant is not being asked to qualify or take on debt. And instead, here's the reason why we have such phenomenal yes numbers, and you've seen this with all three of the presenters on this conference today. We're basically saying, instead of taking on debt, let the utility invest in your residents and let them recover their investment in such a way that both make money, the utility and the member. So for the last arrow on the slide, here's another nice consumer protection piece that's built into PAYS that we think is great. If the upgrade fails and is not repaired, the payment ends. So as a program operator that's concerned about quality control, utility, our company particularly likes this because we pride ourselves in being performance-driven program operators, and what this means is that our contractors must be performance-driven as well. Before I move from the slide, I want to clearly point out one last thing that's not on the slide, but I think it's timely, and that is that PAYS does not depend on ratepayer monies. So although PAYS is compatible with rebate programs and LIHEAP, those are all complementary, it does not depend on subsidized sources of capital or taxpayer funds or ratepayer funds. And also, it's an opt-in tariff, so if you don't want the benefits of the upgrade, then don't take the offer. So it's just a very, very pragmatic approach. So here's the steps and timeline that Ouachita Electric took to switch from the loan-based model to the tariff-based model, and here again, kudos to the gentleman who spoke before me. I don't know if you've noticed, but all of us, if you've been paying attention, our timelines were shorter and shorter thanks to the one before us paving the way. And so I think our onboarding was just incredibly fast, and you can see that right here. In September of 2015, Ouachita Electric hires Meister Consulting Group that does a great job of analyzing the business case, and they did that for Ouachita Electric. And once that analysis was in, Ouachita board reviewed it and immediately chose to switch from making loans to making investments through the tariff on bill program. In December, Ouachita files with the Arkansas Public Service Commission the PAYS tariff. The Public Service Commission, who has just been fantastic to work with, basically their initial response was what, frankly, a lot of members' response is, which is, do you want to lower our costs? Yeah, what they thought really was, so you're wanting to file a tariff and lower consumer costs. So like a lot of folks that go through the program, that was kind of what their reaction was. What's the catch? But anyway, they did their due diligence, and using what had happened before with other Public Service Commission, they were able to just pretty much adopt it pretty quickly, so quickly that within, I think it was about 45 days, we had a unanimous yes decision, and that led to, in April of 2016, just 7 months after making the business case to the board, Help PAYS was launched. So what happened in the next now 9 months has just been incredible. We've had an immediate surge in investments. So when we compare the best 4 months of the HELP program being the loan model to the first 4 months of the HELP PAYS model being the tariff, what we found was the double amount of the customers sought the assessments. And by the way, for the first time ever, a third of those were multifamily. So among the customer receiving the assessments in the multifamily, I'll start with that, 100% of the multifamily folks opted in and said yes, and greater than 80% that received offers in single families said, yes, we want to participate. And here we are, we're financing HVAC now, and what that meant was we could double the scale of capital improvements. And so the amount of money spent on these homes to upgrade went from $3,000 to $6,000, which meant we're getting deeper energy savings. In fact, 30% energy savings is at the low end. Oftentimes we'll see 40 and 50% energy savings, which is not surprising when you're looking at older housing stock and pretty deep retrofits. So when you look at double the customers and double the project size, what does that equal? It equals quadrupled investment, and that's what happened. And in the best 4 months of the help under the loan program, we went from $225,000, which we thought was fantastic, but the first 4 months of help pays was $1 million. So this is hot off the presses, everybody. This is actually a performance summary for what happened in 2016 from April through the end of the year. And this trend has continued. We've had explosive growth. 1.5 million in investments have been made so far with upgrades. We've tripled the same period of prior year for the loan program. 100% of the multifamily housing tenants in the service area opted into the help pays tariff and accepted the investment. 110 new HVAC units have been installed, and these again were units that were not eligible to be financed with the loan program. We have verified nearly 2 kW of peak demand reduction for the first 17 upgrades, and that's just because we've had long enough now to really verify that, but we have no reason to believe that's not going to continue to hold. And that's a really big point. That's $300 a year to the utility in avoided costs. So that's $300 a year in their pocket every year for the life of those improvements. So in the first 9 months of the Help Pays program, which is all we've been operating, first 9 months, we've had 254 signups up until December, 244 assessments, 221 cost-effective offers, and out of that 221, 197 said yes, and I believe that's right at the 90% mark. We've reached 2% of the market in 9 months in Ouachita Electric Service Territory. I just think it's phenomenal, and the numbers are there. It tells the story. People want it, it works, and it's equitable. And not a small side note, 20 jobs in the service area, which is a depressed area. We're estimating about 20 jobs have been supported with new work. So in short, things are moving really, really well for us right now. And the choice for us is clear. We want equitable solutions and we want deep impact. So using the pay system for us as our financing mechanism works, and it works real well. As a matter of fact, for us, no more on-bill loan programs for utility. Those that are already grandfathered in will continue to operate, but for utility as a company, the evidence is in. It's the opt-in tariff for us all the way. So real quickly here on the key lessons learned. Regardless of if folks would want to talk to a utility about operating pays alongside them or for them entirely or not at all, and you prefer to run your own program, here are just some of the operational tips that I want to make sure I share with you all today. First, quality assurance is extremely critical, which means work quality is essential, and that means, it's great for the workforce development. We found that engaging a handful of contractors that focused on performance was better than working with many contractors and giving them each just a handful of jobs. We retest everything prior to authorization, payment authorization. And by the way, this can be done cost effectively, and I think in future sessions in this learning circle we'll be able to share some details about how we do this. We integrate energy efficiency education into the program itself, and that really helps participants achieve and surpass the energy savings that we're estimating for them. We never have sacrificed, nor will we ever sacrifice, real and lasting results for scale. We believe firmly we can deliver both, and we are. In a opt-in tariff program, there are no subsidies. As I mentioned earlier, folks are paying 100% of the cost for the work with their hard-earned money. Nothing will scale the program better or faster than real results, and nothing will kill it faster than inaccurate savings predictions and sloppy work or missed cost-effective installations that are left on the table. We've got to do a really good job there. It's really important. Even though field experience shows low risk exposure, I want to highlight again that the reserve funds that the Arkansas Energy Office put up were a great way to mitigate that perception of risk that the utility wouldn't cover its costs. And I would encourage folks to work with their energy office and and see what role the energy office can play. I know Arkansas Energy Office has just been unbelievably helpful for our work here, and they continue to be. And then lastly, don't start the loan program and then move to a tariff. We've done that. Learn from us, and just like Marshall said, start with the tariff and stay with the tariff. Well, my slide is freezing, but there we go. So on that note, thank you everyone for listening this afternoon, and I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Wesley.
Thank you, Tammy. So now we'll move into our Q&A. And one thing I just want to flag for everybody, as we get into the Q&A portion of this, I know we've got a lot of experienced folks who might have some more technical questions around things like quality assurance, quality control, or EM&V, or third-party implementers, that kind of thing. I just want to flag, as we move forward from here, the next 6 sessions we do over the next 6 months are going to be deep dives into those weeds. And so you're welcome to field your questions out, but we'll try to keep our answers at a relatively high level so that we can, make sure that we adequately address those questions most appropriately in the oncoming sessions. So with that being said, though, I'm going to actually go ahead and take a privilege of teeing up one question I had first of all. Marshall and Tammy, I heard you both using different terms here around the question of, Marshall, I heard you say the term deemed savings, and I heard Tammy saying estimated savings, and I wonder if y'all could provide any kind of clarity on how what your method is actually for estimating savings and how you calculate that into your financial modeling.
Tammy, I'll go first. Marshall here. For us, primarily it's through the reduction in the CFM count through the blower door test that we're doing. Of course, we're doing a blower door test pre-project, and on the back end of the project, we will come behind it and do another one. And from there, as we're seeing the reductions in airflow, we're monetizing it. And of course, as we monetize it, that's the number that we're, deeming as the savings that we should be projecting based on the fact that we're tightening the home.
And pretty much ditto for what Marshall said. The only difference for utility and for us, it's really our Ouachita Electric Cooperative has a smart meter information that they happily share with us. A lot of the co-ops actually here in Arkansas do. And so while we can use software that will help, calculate deemed savings, what we're also doing is we're taking a little bit deeper dive at the cost effectiveness analysis, and we're looking really hard at that usage history to make sure once the initial cursory assessment is done as a quality control feature, we're looking at a recommendation with the metered smart meter data in mind, and sometimes that can pull out some behavior red flags that will help us make sure that if we've got something kind of that's wonky, we're not making an offer until we figure that wonkiness out, so to speak. So I don't want to dive too much in the weeds more than that, but I mean it's similar I think it's just maybe a little bit different ways of analyzing it. And actually, when I mentioned that utility will be helping cooperate with the Upgrade to Save program, that's one of the things that Roanoke Electric really liked about what we're able to do here in Ouachita, and want to take advantage of us being able to do that for them too. Just take a little bit deeper dive to give them a little bit more comfortableness that those savings are really going to be there.
Okay, I appreciate that, Tammy. Yes, I think it's just to be clear, it's when y'all are doing your estimates, when you're going and considering a property for being eligible for upgrade, you're using the estimated savings from your site investigation and then following up after the fact. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Great. Okay, so we got a list of questions here. I'll just jump onto one of the first one here. They had a question about sources of capital, which I know is going to be one of our deeper dive topics before, but we got that North Carolina was using the ECLIP funding. The question was, where are Arkansas and Kentucky? How did they finance their program?
Yeah, hey, it's Chris here from Kentucky. And Mesa being a type of bank, a CDFI, we have access to capital. And that capital comes from two sources, one being the federal government, and the second being program-related investments, or PRIs, which are coming from philanthropic institutions. And so it's a great thing. Again, another situation in which there's a win-win. And so these philanthropic organizations can invest in things that are important to their mission and that really move the needle and see a return on that investment at the same time.
And for us in Arkansas, and we're working with 6 rural electric cooperatives, each of whom have their own financing mechanism. Some, like Marshall in Roanoke, have ECLIP dollars, or RUS dollars, I should say. And others, like Ouachita Electric, for example, is a co-bank lender. They're CFC as well. So, you know, it's really they're using their in-house source. There's not too many, from what I understand, in the rural electric cooperative market. There's RUS, CFC, and co-bank make up about 90% of the lending capital that the rural electric utilities use across the country. So since we work with the rural electric cooperative sector, those are the 3 sources that our co-ops, one or all the above, are getting their capital.
Thank you, guys. We've got another question about, so for people who do have this program available, I think the question is, what motivates participants to pay for measures such as insulation out of pocket when they could take advantage of the program? Are there certain stipulations that make the program unattractive to them, or does participation potentially make their utility bill increase?
Well, I'll field that one. I'm happy to give that a shot. The beauty of the opt-in tariff is that, and especially when you subscribe to the PAYS model, is that as the consumer protection piece, 20% of the savings has to stay in the member's pocket. So what that means is the member is cash flow positive as a result of going forward. Very, very simply put, if it's not cash flow positive, then it's not an offer. So there is not a circumstance when a member goes flip-flop, to answer that question.
And we've seen some folks here in Kentucky that, you know, they're just happy to have access to the expertise, and they do have resources on hand. And it makes sense for those folks to go ahead and pay for their investments as long as they have the comfort of being able to access independent third-party expertise and know that those investments will come back to them in return in the form of savings.
And I should mention too, I mean, there are a few folks in Ouachita Service Territory or other co-ops in Arkansas that have chosen to go through the program, but not basically use the terms and you know, finance over a period of time, and instead prefer to go through the program, have the QC inspection done, and then just write a check for the work, that's fine too.
Yes, and at Roanoke, we actually experienced, that was our first one yesterday. We had our very first person to come forward. Before we applied the tariff, she actually paid the full value of the investment. And of course, in our area, in many cases, as I mentioned in one of my slides, there are people, in many cases are not willing to take on additional debt. And of course, without the certainty that there are some savings, to Tammy's point. And so we ensure, in our case as well, that that the savings will more than absorb the loan repayment or the tariff, brother.
That's great. And I appreciate you guys' answers. And unfortunately, we are at time. And I know we have other questions that folks want us to get to. I can assure you we are going to have opportunities to get to those in the future, however. So I want to go ahead and take you through what will be happening next. All right, so following this session, we are going to be conducting 6 more monthly installments to cover a series of kind of narrower topics to go deeper into those thorny questions like I mentioned before. Just a flag for everybody, it is open to all who are interested in attending. The one thing we do request is that you provide us with a short description on how you plan to apply the things we're going to be learning in this session. That is going to go into kind of some more technical questions on how to actually stand some of these programs up. So we do want to make sure that we're making the best use of everybody's time who attends and not going so down into the weeds that it's not of value to you if you're not looking to start up a program. So that being said, it is going to be a great opportunity to get access to a lot of great technical assistance and expertise on this topic area. We hope you'll be able to join us. Folks who want to get involved, this is what the slate of programs is going to be over the next 6 months. In March, we're going to dive into the consumer protections for inclusive financing for energy efficiency, and we will send out the date and registration links for that with a follow-up from this webinar, which will also include links to the recording of this webinar as well as our first one for you all to catch up and share with your friends who are also interested in learning about this topic. And this will also have details on how to get in touch with me and send me your information so that you can sign up for the Learning Circle, and we'll get everybody signed up for that. Oh yes, we do have our date set. It is going to be Thursday, March 23rd from 2 to 3 p.m. where we'll go into consumer protections. And as I said, we'll get that calendar invite out to everybody, and it will be also available to register through SEEA's website at www.sealliance.org. And we appreciate you all for listening today, and many thanks to our presenters from across the region. So thank you all again, and hope you have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.